to be continuing my realistic animal kind of unofficial series. I've done a few others in the past. I have a rhino and I have a giraffe, and this one is going to be a gorilla. I really like it. It's kind of monochromatic since the gorilla is all shades of black and gray, but I do think it is just so cool and it's so deep. And I'll show you a side view of the nail so that you can really see how much height is built up on him. I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and if you missed those previous ones, I can put links to them in the description box below, and I will see you next time. Bye!
So we are going to begin with an overlay of a sky blue acrylic, just as I have done with the past ones. And the reason I always do this particular background is I want the animals to seem, I don't know, they're extra realistic. I want them to seem like they're in their natural habitat. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could sculpt little fluffy clouds into this overlay as well. I did not. In fact, I didn't even encapsulate this because if with clear acrylic, because I wanted to keep it so super thin and delicate looking. So I didn't encapsulate, and while I wouldn't recommend that for actually wearing it, if you were to wear this nail, it does work just fine for a practice nail. So now we're going to begin sculpting our gorilla with black acrylic. And when you're sculpting black on top of that really pale blue background, you will notice that if you put acrylic where you don't want it and you try to move it, it will smudge and stain. So that is something that is a risk if you are hopefully willing to take that works out for you. As you can see, I am putting black acrylic where I have all that smudging, but it will smudge pretty significantly. So if you are worried about that, the best fix that I can come up with for you, people ask all the time how you sculpt dark things on top of a light colored background without creating a sticky, icky mess, is to apply a layer of gel top coat or gel sealer, if you can find gel sealer, over the background, and that'll just create a little barrier. It's like a little, I don't know, anti-stick surface. The one issue that you can run into when you're doing that is sometimes your acrylic tends to run away. So you place a bead down and then it just kind of whooshes and it can slip right off the nail, which I have personally done that, where it just kind of slips and slides and it drips off the side of the nail right away. So you have to kind of practice with it if you've never done that before, sculpt it on such a slick surface, and once you get it down and you kind of can adjust how you're working with it, then it's fine. But that would be the best fix if you're worried about that smudging problem. Otherwise, back to our Sir Gorilla here, we're going to be using the black acrylic and just building up all of his basic shapes for the time being. So we've got his really big head, his broad forehead, the back of his head sculpted in. We're going to do his arms. So the position I have him in is where he's standing up on his back legs and he's leaning on his knuckles, which I would say is like your classic silverback gorilla pose. It's what I would always think of when I think gorilla, the first thought that comes into my mind, unless he's pounding on his chest. But for this particular moment, we're just going to have him kind of just leaned over that way, and he's got his really super muscular arms. Look at some pictures of gorillas. They're beefy. So don't forget to kind of give them that muscle tone that they work so hard for. And then after you have that done, you're just going to keep adding layers with black. And I know it is so hard in the video to see where all of these layers are coming from, where they're placed, how they play into the final image, because, you know, black on camera is sort of like taking a picture of a black cat. It just does not work too well. But it is there, and now that we're going to start building up his face with gray acrylic, we're going to start kind of really seeing all of that hard work. So grab a bead of gray acrylic and start in one spot of his face. So either do, say, his brow bone, or start in with, what I'm doing is going to be kind of below his nose, his mouth, and then his chin. Use the tip of your brush to carve in his mouth. You don't want to do all of that stuff just with paint with this particular style that I'm working for. You don't want to kind of rely on paint too much. You want to sculpt in every detail that you possibly can and get this beautiful depth and height to the different areas of whatever it is you're sculpting. In this case, it happens to be a gorilla. So I use the tip of my brush to carve into his mouth so that he actually had, a mouth that he could open up if, he was a real living gorilla. So then we're going to keep adding details at his nose. Just keep adding stuff. So I know when I'm sculpting something like this, it's easy to get overwhelmed. You can look at all of it, you can look at the big picture, and you can forget to see the little details. And that's probably the easiest mistake to make for really anything art-wise, is to be distracted by the broad image and not just look at one thing. So if you are sculpting this and you have a reference photo, which, definitely I can't stress the benefit of having a reference photo enough, have your reference photo on, your phone or whatever it is that you are looking at it on. And then whatever part of it that you're sculpting, zoom in, blow up the photo to just that area. It kind of blacks out the rest of it, and it makes it so that it's a little easier to not distract yourself. So if you're working on his mouth, if you really want to just do like mouth and nose, blow it up just so on his mouth and nose, so you don't have to worry about the way his eyes look or anything else, because you're just looking at mouth and nose. And then do the same thing for his eye area. Blow it up, look to see, oh, you know what? The area right underneath his brow bone, really dark. I'm going to darken that with a little bit of black acrylic. Have these thoughts run through your head and let them just flow with ease, and look at your image as if you are a detective and you're finding every little bit of information out of your suspect, your image, that you possibly can. And use all of that information. Don't just find it and then say, oh, but you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to worry about that. Use it. And don't feel bad about sculpting over something or redoing something, because it's all part of the process. So once we have all of this done, this is a young gorilla, by the way. An older gorilla would have a much larger, much grayer head. We're going to be adding in his eyes with white acrylic, sculpt them in very gently, just kind of pat that bead of acrylic into place. And then once the eyes are done, for the most part, this sculpting could be complete. If you wanted to, you can keep adding layers to it, but he's looking pretty good. I'm going to take some white acrylic, however, and I'm going to be adding some highlights here and there with the white acrylic. But like I said, if it looks good to you and you're happy with it, just leave it as it is. Don't add anything else, because you can do some of this highlighting in detail with acrylic paint later if you wanted to. Some of this stuff is sort of an optional, whether you want to do it with acrylic or acrylic paint. I wouldn't do it with gel paint or gel polish because it's on top of the rough acrylic, and you just want to try to keep it as simple and as smooth as you can. So if you are using the gel paint, it just seems to kind of look sort of catchy. I don't know. It doesn't work as well, at least in my opinion. So after we're done with this, and you can keep adding some different highlights there, I'm going to add a little bit of black inside his mouth. Again, that is a step that could have been done with acrylic paint. We are going to do some final details with acrylic paint. So I'm going to mix several shades of gray. As you can see, I use my thumb as a palette. One benefit of using acrylic paint instead of gel paint is you don't have to worry about it getting on your skin. And so we're just going to use this acrylic paint to add some little details. I'm going to add some fur lines on his arms, really make it obvious that he's furry. Same thing on his forehead, little lines here and there, just little teeny tiny lines. And then I'm going to do the same thing with black. Even though he was sculpted with black, there were so many layers of gray that went over the top of it that the little black lines do add some texture. Do some black details on his face. Just keep going through, and any place where you feel like there needs to be something added, go through and do that. I'm going to give him a brown iris, and then just more details. There's really no issue of doing too much with one of these designs. Eventually, you'll look at it and you're like, you know what, this is where I'm happy with this design. This is where I like it, and then you'll call it good. Otherwise, if you're not happy yet, just focus on something else and then maybe come back to the area that was giving you some trouble. Apply a layer of gel sealer over the background, apply some matte top coat over your Mr. Gorilla, and this nail is done. If you guys like gorillas, I have a pretty wicked gorilla face that I did for a video a while back that was an AMC to the moon video, which if you are interested in gorillas in general, definitely go back and check that one out. This gorilla here that I sculpted today is also for my husband, and you'll understand more of that after you watch the other video. But I hope you like it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!